Redbox, one of the last giants of the physical movie rental industry, standing firm in its proposition that people are still willing to put on pants, leave their homes, and drive to pick up a movie to watch rather than just beam it to their living room TV on one of the many streaming services. In case you've never been to a Redbox and prefer your entertainment without ever leaving the indent you've created on your couch, here's how the company works. The traditional model consists of physical machines, similar in size and shape to a vending machine, in high traffic areas. These hold approximately 500 titles for the consumer to choose from. Once the movies have been selected, the customer inserts a credit card or debit card and is charged a set fee per day for each movie rented. Or, if kept for longer than 25 days, they would be charged for the 25 days and would now own the movie. It began, surprisingly, as a concept dreamed up by McDonald's. Yes, the movie rental service was the spawn of Ronald McDonald himself in the form of a wholly owned subsidiary of the McDonald's Corporation called McDonald's Ventures LLC in the year 2002. This came about as McDonald's was researching methods to increase customer traffic to their fast food restaurants across the United States. It was based on the fact that McDonald's felt that there could be a strong demand for conveniently located kiosks where customers would be able to rent the newest movies on DVD. The first desired effect was that customers who wanted to rent a movie would go to their local McDonald's restaurant to do so, and while renting a movie, would also choose to purchase food at the restaurant. The other hope was that customers who were already eating at a McDonald's restaurant would decide to rent movies while there and would provide yet another stream of income for the ever-growing fast food titan. Despite its inception being in 2002, the first Redbox kiosks as we know of today weren't launched until 2004 at select McDonald's locations in Denver, Colorado. The initial response was positive, leading to the company expanding to over 17,000 locations in all of the 48 contiguous United States. In 2005, McDonald's spun off Redbox as a separate company, and in 2009 sold off its stake to Coinstar Incorporated. Now, they claim that 90% of all Americans live within a 5-mile drive of one of their 40,000 plus locations. An interesting bit of the company's model that differentiated Redbox from the other movie rental places of the time was that they did not have to be returned to the same location they were rented from. If you were going on a road trip across the United States and wanted to rent a movie from Denver, Colorado, the birthplace of Redbox, and return it to Houston, Texas, the city with the largest number of kiosks with approximately 1,200 kiosks over 900 locations, you could do so without any additional penalties or fees. This left Redbox with a bit of a problem, however. When customers were allowed to rent a movie from any kiosk and return it to any other kiosk, it left many of the machines with unbalanced libraries of movies. One kiosk may have 25 copies of the newest Marvel movie, while another had none, subjecting people to choose literally any other movie, leaving them saddened by their lack of favorite crime-fighting vigilantes. This was no minor issue for the company, since only about half of the movies rented ended up at the same box they originated at. The company also has to deal with new releases. Redbox purchases the new releases and uses a Sony subsidiary to replicate, barcode, and place the discs in cases and organize the titles before shipping the bundles of selections directly to field warehouses. Before the 2012 arrangement with the Sony subsidiary, field workers had to sort the titles themselves. In a 2015 interview, Matt James, the vice president of inventory and logistics at Redbox, said, "In a normal week, we send about 1.5 million discs to 260 distribution points, and ultimately to 43,000 kiosks across the United States, including Alaska, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico." Redbox is unusual for the physical rental industry because they only buy a new title once, about 10 different movies each week in quantities of 200 to 600,000, and never replenishes those titles. James went on to say that demand is very high for the new titles in the first few weeks after release, followed by a steep decay in demand. The company has about 1,000 employees who service the kiosks like a vending machine. They'll pull out the old discs and make sure that the kiosk is clean and in good working order so consumers have a good experience. In fact, over the past few years, the number of kiosks a field worker must service has increased from 35 to 60, with the increase in the amount of Redboxes around the country. One of the biggest problems Redbox was faced with is keeping their kiosks stocked with the right films. For the initial distribution of a new title, The company uses an algorithm to match the allocation to each kiosk's demographics and history. Every kiosk gets a custom assortment each week. Some may only get 6 to 7 copies of a new title, while a kiosk 2 miles away may get 20 to 25 copies of the same film, because a certain genre of film may do well in some areas, but not in others. As people return movies to different boxes than they rented them from, imbalances can become extreme very quickly. James goes on to say, let's say 2 kiosks started with 15 discs of a particular DVD. After a week or two, one might be down to 2 discs, and the other might have 25 to 30 copies. The first one will probably stock out, which creates a bad customer experience, and the other will have a lot of discs sitting there not being productive. To address this issue, the company first tried to send out dedicated workers to check the boxes regularly and move discs if needed, but this system was flawed and very expensive. So they ended up reworking how each kiosk worked, rebuilding the software from the ground up, incorporating more intelligence into the system. Now, the company runs new algorithms every night that tells each kiosk to identify discs that are oversupplied and also titles that are in short supply for current demand. The information is sorted and communicated back, so when the field employees show up the next day, the kiosk is able to tell them which titles to remove and where to relocate them on their route later in the day, as well as which titles need to be added and removed from the mix. It doesn't really cost us any extra time, James says, maybe a minute per kiosk, and it allows us to move over 200,000 discs a week back into productive spots. The algorithms are constrained by the routes of each field representative, so they never have to backtrack or deviate from their normal route. It is a closed-loop system, so everything that gets taken out of one location gets put back in at another. The system is working well at smoothing imbalances. James continues, our field representatives visit between 10 and 20 kiosks a day and as many as 100 over a week in denser areas. In the example that I gave earlier, where one kiosk was down to 2 discs and another had 25, when they started with 15, we see those equalize within 1 or 2 discs within the week. Now you may be wondering what happens when a movie no longer needs to be at the box. As new movies come out, older movies need to be phased out to make room for the new releases. They will typically begin phasing titles out at the end of the 3rd or 4th week of having them been introduced to the Redbox lineup. Usually about a year after they are released, they have completely been removed all from circulation. There are several options as to what will happen to these discs. As you may have guessed, holding onto a rented movie for 25 days transfers ownership to the renter, and Redbox also allows you to purchase the movie up front from the box as well. These are both ways that the company removes movies from their circulation. Yet, per the agreement Redbox has with the movie studios they acquire the movies from, Redbox is required to destroy 80% of the discs from each title in order to make sure the market isn't being flooded with a large supply of each movie. They will send the ones they have removed to a logistics company they work with, where they are ground up in a massive shredder. They recycle the scrap, which is predominantly used for the production of bicycle helmets. So the next time you purchase a helmet, just know you could be wearing a combination of old horror and action flicks. A small portion of the discs that are not destroyed are sent back to a Redbox storage facility in the event that they run a back at the kiosk promotion later, such as when a sequel has been announced. Redbox prioritizes the customer experience, making it easy to find the movies you want and then renting them. This level of attention to detail can be seen all the way down to the physical machines themselves. The kiosks show movies that are currently for rent or sale at the box next to it, and the company's marketing department makes sure to provide each field representative with specific instructions about exactly where to place each movie's cover art. This translates to them keeping the cover art for kids' movies at the bottom of the display, where children can more easily spot it in more prominent films they would like to push at eye level. Speaking of the kiosks, there were several matters that the company had to deal with. Firstly, most of the kiosks are outside. This can be especially a problem in northern states during the coldest months of the year, when temperatures drop well below freezing. To solve this, they placed heating units within the boxes nearest to all of the most important components, like the processor for the computer that allows the box to function normally. It kicks in when it detects the temperature dropping below a certain degree. That's not to say that the machines never need repairs, however. Occasionally, the field representative will visit boxes to find that they have had their screens smashed or have been graffitied to the point that they are no longer usable. In these instances, the damaged kiosks are sent to a facility in Kent, Washington for repairs. Fortunately for the company, they normally only have to send about 20 kiosks per year for repairs. The logistics of Redbox have been no easy feat to create. It's a balancing act between customer convenience and managing the thin margins physical movie rental companies operate on. Despite its foothold on over 50% of the physical rental market, even Redbox is starting to give in and incorporating streaming content into its business model. They are attempting to navigate the ever-changing landscape of movie rentals by incorporating Blu-ray discs and a short-lived attempt at video game rentals. For what their initial goal was, they've come a long way in maximizing their reach and potential over what has been seen for over a decade as a dying industry. Redbox doesn't appear to be going anywhere anytime soon. They've committed themselves to innovating new solutions to make movie rentals cheap, easy, and accessible. As more stake is claimed in the internet streaming race, it will be interesting to see how the company will adapt in the years to come. Thank you for watching Learn Something New. If you liked the video, please consider liking and subscribing. It means a lot to see your support. See you next time.